There was talk that some bosses at his label wanted to drop him. Springsteen rushed back into the studio to record what he hoped would be his big hit single, the song, Born to Run.
When we went out to record Born to Run, I was trying to make the greatest rock record ever. You know, I wanted it to explode in people's homes and minds and, you know, change people's lives, because that's what the pivotal rock records did for me.
'Cause tramps like us, baby, we were born to run.
In a shrewd move, Appel slipped a copy unreleased song to pro-Springsteen FM stations. The Springsteen cult got bigger and more fanatical. Columbia decided to stick with Bruce. The pressure on Springsteen was enormous. The critics and local fans had bought him time, but if his third album flopped, he knew he was finished. Born to Run was a great song, but now he needed a whole album as good, and he had no idea how to get there.
The album coming up, as I'm just starting to get, you know, a concept for it in my mind, you know, like it's got to be something special, you know, and it's got to go forward, you know. I'm not sure exactly what yet, but I have an idea, you know.
Springsteen would spend a whole year sweating it out. It would be the hardest time of his life, a time when his music would change, part of the E Street Band would leave, and he'd fall out with his manager and producer. Making Born to Run would change Bruce Springsteen's life in ways he could not even imagine.
Those tramps like us, baby, we were born to run.
Bruce Springsteen recorded the song Born to Run in 1974. It held the promise of being his breakthrough. Springsteen had developed a strong club following in the East Coast, but he had no money. And after 2 albums that didn't sell, his time was running out. He needed a hit. It would take a year of hard work to record the Born to Run album. It was a year of upheaval and drama. The first kick came when David Sanchez, the best musician in the E Street Band, told Bruce he was leaving for a solo career. Sanchez took drummer Boom Carter with him. The E Street Band was down to 3 members.
The band was broke. I mean, I felt bad to lose him because I just loved him as a person, and we roomed together. You know, it was me and Davey, and I knew I was going to miss them. But at the same time, it was a great opportunity for him, and you know, so I wished him well.
Springsteen placed an ad in the Village Voice looking for 2 musicians. Roy Bittan and Max Weinberg got the gig. Recording Born to Run was torture. Nothing sounded the way it did in Bruce's head.
I was having problems creatively in the studio. I just was having a hard time making records. You know, we're all a bunch of amateurs.
But manager Mike Appel still insisted on producing. Bruce began to doubt his ability. As he usually did when things got bad, Springsteen reached out to his friends. His old Asbury Park buddy, Steve Van Zandt, showed up one night and helped solve some problems. Bruce invited him to join the E Street Band. He also began asking the advice of John Landau, the music critic who had called Bruce the future of rock and roll.
I sent him a tape, and he said, "Gee whiz, you know, first time I heard it, he said, it just sounded like a bunch of noise, you know." But after I listened to it for a while, I could hear what was going on there. He came in and broke down a lot of the barriers to some of the problems we were having. He just has different perceptions of things, that when it all came together was a big contribution to put the thing over the hill, you know.
Appel now feared he was being replaced by Landau. He fought to hang on. The more Appel tried to keep Landau out, the more Bruce wanted him in. Springsteen made Landau co-producer with himself and Appel. Appel was furious. The tension added to the enormous pressure in the studio. In the first half of 1975, Springsteen slaved over Born to Run. He spent weeks overdubbing guitar parts. He rewrote lyrics again and again. The sessions dragged on and on. Fans kept asking, "Where's the record?" By summer, Columbia had to have the album. They had taken out ads and booked the tour. Springsteen was under the gun. On July 20th, 1975, Springsteen finally finished Born to Run. That night, he and the new E Street Band kicked off their tour. After the months of hard work, Bruce said being on stage felt like walking onto a beach. A week later, he played The Bottom Line in New York City.
We turn you over to the stage and Bruce Springsteen.
The club was packed with fans, press and radio, and record company big shots. Bruce seized the moment. All the doubters were converted. The critics went crazy. By October, Springsteen became the first entertainer to make the covers of both Newsweek and Time in the same week.
I spoke to my dad. I was going to be on the cover of Time and Newsweek, and I said, Papa, I'm going to be on the cover of Time and Newsweek, which was like saying, yeah, I'm taking Santa Claus's job at the North Pole this year. You know, I mean, it was just as fantastical, you know. He just said, and I remember saying, well, he says, you know, better you than another picture of the president.
Bruce Springsteen was now famous, but more people knew his name than his music.
All by himself.
There were heightened expectations and accusations of hype. Bruce was thrown for a loop. It felt like his dream was coming true all wrong. Like the success he'd worked so long for was arriving in a way that was out of his control.
It was probably the first time that I was ever afraid that I'd lose my grip on what was, you know, what I was doing, you know. It was a very sort of primal fear in the sense that you worked hard and you worry that some fundamental nature of what you're doing will be subverted in some fashion. That's always the danger of any type of mass popular success, you know.
All by himself.
Bruce's album got to number 3, but there still didn't seem to be much money coming in. He was suspicious. He brought in an attorney and an accountant. The news wasn't good. Bruce didn't own the rights to his own songs. Appel did. And Appel's company was making more money off of Bruce's albums than he was. The battle was on. Springsteen sued Appel. He wanted out of their deal. Appel countersued and stopped Bruce from recording with Landau. It was a long and bitter fight, but Springsteen refused to back down.
I couldn't conceive of somebody having that kind of control over that part of my life. I felt like I had to be able to make my own choices. It was so central to me and who I was that there wasn't an area for compromise at that time about those things, you know.
For 3 years, from 1975 until 1978, Bruce Springsteen didn't release an album. He said he would walk away from the music business before he'd give in.
Quite a few years went by there, and you opened the papers and you read all the whatever happened to articles, and it didn't make you feel very good. But I didn't know how to do it any other way. And I was committed to my relationship with John, which I sensed tremendous value in. And this was an area where I wasn't going to be dictated to.
After working his whole life to make his dream come true, Bruce faced the very real chance he could lose everything.
After, you know, I got in the lawsuit, I realized some basic thing. That maybe I was the guy that gets the guitar, and I get the girl. And maybe I get to leave town. I get to get away. I get to escape. Then you realize that, like, that adds up to a big so what, you know, whatever you're doing. It just adds up to a big so what.
At 3 a.m. on May 28, 1977, Springsteen and Appel settled their lawsuits. Bruce gave up money and Appel gave up control. Right away, Bruce made John Landau his new manager. Then he made an album that summed up all the hard lessons he had learned. Springsteen was no longer the romantic young boy. He was a man who fought for what he believed in and won.